Hi, Jennifer.
Good morning, good evening.
Where are you?
Smith Mountain Lake.
Tell me about Smith Mountain Lake. We're going there in July. Where do you usually stay?
My parents have a house.
Do they? How
Yes.
far is it from Richmond and how far is it from Charlottesville?
From Richmond, it takes us like 2 hours and 50 minutes.
That's not bad.
From Charlottesville, I'm gonna say it's probably 2 hours.
Really.
Yeah, something like that.
We are probably 4 hours from there, but Greg's son lives in Roanoke, so he's going to be right there.
Okay.
So we're trying to figure out where a good house to rent is for 4 bedrooms for us and his parents and blah blah blah.
Oh, nice. Right, right, right.
Is there a
We,
place you're just staying at your parents' house?
yeah. Yeah, and then we have a cabin on on the property too, which
Awesome.
I have rented out to one person for the entire summer for the
Totally awesome.
weekends. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's nice. It's beautiful. It's big. It's a lot of work trying to keep up this house and the house in Richmond, but my
I
dad did it
imagine.
for so many years. So
Now you're doing it?
my husband and I, we've got my brother trying to help, and then sometimes my brother-in-law helps, but
Oh gosh.
yeah.
Well, you look relaxed.
Oh, I wish I was. Thank you.
Hi, hi, how are you, Sonia? How are you, Lisa? Everybody okay for now?
Trying to get my unmute button to work, but yes,
Okay.
doing great. Glad to be here. This is like my comeback to center class.
Well, good. We're glad to have you back in the center for now. It's kind of that way for me too. But anyway, so, and how are you doing, Lisa, today?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
Is it raining on your end of town?
It's not raining down here. Is it raining up there in Richmond?
It's trying to be ugly outside.
Oh, okay. Ooh. How is it? What's the weather like in
I'm
Oklahoma?
beginning to think we live in
A very wet
Sonya.
place. Yeah. How's the weather in Oklahoma, Sonia?
It's actually pretty warm today, but it's supposed to start storming, I think, later this evening or tomorrow. So,
The news shows a warm front going across the United States. Did you see it? And it might be that Oklahoma was in the circle of hot. Is that true? Lisa?
yes,
You're in the circle of hot? Bummer.
yes, and it's very humid, very humid.
Oh,
Yes,
eh,
so I try to stay inside as much as possible because I'm very spoiled by the air conditioner.
yeah, got you. Got you. Okay, here's this.
The weather here is wonderful. I had the windows down running into town this morning,
You
but I got
did?
to tell you the pollen is coming down like snow here.
Wow.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Where's the closest town to where you are, Jennifer?
Rocky Mount is the biggest town closest to us, and that's about 24 miles.
24 miles. That's not bad.
Mm-mm. No.
So that's where your grocery store is located? Those,
Uh-huh. We've got a
okay.
Kroger and a Food Lion and a Walmart, a super Walmart.
Okay, well then, just don't need much more than that
Mm-mm.
for provisions.
No, but we've also got a Dollar General that's right up the street, and they've started carrying produce and all your frozen foods. And yeah, so you could really get by on just that if you needed to.
Okay, well, that's
I'll
good.
remember that next time I come visit you up there.
Okay.
Hey, Liz, how are you doing?
I'm good. Hanging in there.
Hanging in there. Okay, good. Good. Well, let's see. Mark is going to be late today, so we'll start without him in a few minutes. Oh, we have 6:58. Yikes. Okay. Let's see who else wanders in this evening. Okay. Sonia. Okay, here comes Lisa Nowicki and Sabrina. Hi, Sabrina. Hi, Lisa. They're waiting to come on. Hi, Lisa. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you,
Good.
Karen?
Good. Good.
Right.
I'm Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Sarah. So, Sarah, I was looking at your website today, your one that's got you, Sarah, on it. And it's a killer, fabulous, wonderful, extremely excellent. So I was going to use that to introduce you, or would you rather me use JB Media?
No, you can use that website. That's fine. Thanks.
I love that one.
Thanks.
There's one quote on there. I'm not going to spoil the thunder, but I'll introduce you with that. I would love to do that also, except I would have substitutions in names, which I'll enlighten you about later. But anyway. Okay. And Sabrina, hi, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good, good. So Sarah, tonight we are going to start with takeaways, and they have to check in with their homework from last week, which didn't get done. And it's where is their most local score place located? And some of these folks are in rural areas, so it will be very interesting to see, what they find and what they report about. And when it comes to you, you might let you check in as a score person. Because you are a score person, right? Okay. Okay. here
Yeah,
comes-
I'm still doing some teaching for them on occasion. And yeah, they always know I'm available when they need support.
Totally awesome. Totally awesome. Look at Matthew. He looks like he's at the beach. Okay, well, let's see. I believe it is 7:02, so I think we should probably go ahead and start. So welcome to class 10, everybody. 10 whole classes we've had. We have about 12 more to go. So we have all of June, all of May, all of June, and all of July. So good. Hi, Matthew. How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, good.
I
So
was I was on a cruise ship during that picture
oh, you were.
a few months ago.
It looks very fun. It looks very fun.
It was great.
So tonight we're going to check in with last week's homework assignment about your findings with SCORE. And because Sarah, our speaker, is on the line, I thought in addition to checking in with your SCORE homework, if you could also say your name and what state you're from and why you're taking this course. Okay. So then I'll introduce Sarah. But Jennifer, what about you? Oh, you're muted, Jennifer.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. My name is Jennifer. I live in Richmond, Virginia. I am an operating room nurse. Been one for 30 years, going on 31 in the profession. I did 2 weeks ago, I looked up our SCORE website, and we do have a few mentors in the Richmond, Virginia area, but I can't find them right now because, you know, I'm being pressured. Why I took this course, I want to look for something else within the next 2 years. I call this my 2-year plan. I'm tired of moral and ethical injuries, not being able to really take care of patients the way I want to, or having interference, so to speak. So that's why I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. All right, Miss Sonia, what about you?
Hello, nice to meet you, Sarah. My name is Sonia Frazier, and I am Choctaw and Chickasaw, and I live in Oklahoma. And I've been a registered nurse for over 21 years. I work primarily in Indigenous communities, and I also live in an Indigenous community. But the reason I'm taking this course is because we are wanting to develop a holistic spiritual clinic in my clinic. And I feel like it's coming together because we recently hired an orthopedic doctor who's holistic as well. So it's all just coming together. And so I'm just so excited to see what I'm going to learn from you tonight, to see how that's going to help us progress in our clinic. So thank you.
And did you found a
Oh,
SCORE
yes.
chapter?
I found my SCORE person, and they are in Oklahoma City, Cecil Fur, and they already emailed me back with some information about grants that we could possibly apply for. And so I just got to get back with them now.
Totally awesome. Thank you. Okay, Lisa Seeds, what about you?
I'm Lisa Seeds. Originally from Mechanicsville, Virginia. And I live in Chesterfield, which is just outside of Richmond. And Jennifer and me have similar thoughts processes. The main thing is, you know, I want to see if I can help my peers and my patients all at the same time kind of get along and look out for one another and just involve some harmony. So as far as the SCORE mentors are concerned, I found multiple. There's a lot in Richmond. I think I counted like 12 right off the bat. Many of them have wonderful industry experience and areas of expertise. However, there were some that spoke to me more than others, and I have not reached out to them, but I will reach out to them at some point after Jennifer and me look at them and decide which ones we think would be best for us. So that's where we are.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, and Liz, what about you?
My name's Liz. Sorry, somebody was walking up on my dog. Okay. And I live in Loveland, Colorado. And I don't know how to say this. I guess I'm just looking for something away from, I'd like to be my own boss and support. I have thoughts of what I want to do, but I also wanted to like, what does this community need? Because I'm newer to Loveland. So I'd like to try to figure that out, get that vision, but providing seamless transitions and empowering patients and helping them along the way. I love doing that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Liz. And Sabrina.
always hard to follow Liz up, but I'm Sabrina, and I know y'all are shocked that it's hard to find my long-term care ombudsman, which was my homework from last week, was Laura Norris, and she was the closest one in Northwest Arkansas. But I did get down her information. And my SCORE chapter, the closest one, was also in Northwest Arkansas. Of course, nobody near me. But the SCORE chapter was in Bentonville. And I am part of this class for multiple reasons, but I feel like a lot of the patients in my community fall through the cracks, and when they get out of the hospital, all my cute little old people here, a lot of them fall through the cracks, whether it be through compliance or meds or, just the fact that they can't even get, DME, or they get lost to follow-up. So a lot of those things I think can be fixed when you look at things more holistically. So I would rather help with a system that gets that on board.
Well, that's thorough. Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you. All right, Lisa Nowicki, what about you?
I will admit what I heard from the homework was the ombudsman to find the local one. But I did look up the SCORE chapter really quick when you said that. I found one in our area. I guess there's probably more if there's 15 or whatever Lisa Seed said about in the Richmond area. So there's probably more. Sorry, I didn't hear that part. I did look into the ombudsman, and I left a message and I didn't get a call back. It seemed like there was a bunch of people. From what I could gather, it looked, from all that I could find, they were volunteers. So, so I don't know if it's like that in every state, but that's what I found for Orlando. And oh yeah, by the way, yes, I'm from Orlando. And what else can I say? Yes, in this class, because just wanting to learn how to help my patients in a better way. So there we have it.
Thank you, Lisa.
Mhm.
Hi, Matthew. What about you?
Hey, I'm Matthew Moody, and I live in Albuquerque, work in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I'm a nurse practitioner. So I've left hospital, and I used to be the prison doctor here, and gone into a very small holistic practice that's where I'm the only medical provider, and reinventing myself. They don't have any of the systems, so SCORE is going to be awesome for me. Ombudsman, we're rich with them in New Mexico.
Wow.
There's just a lot of them there. It's closest one is Santa Fe, really north in the underserved populations. I see more of those, and then SCORE also. SCORE is really rich here in both Santa Fe and Albuquerque.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Matthew. And Luann, what about you? We're saying where we're from, what's your name, where are you, and why are you taking this course? And what's your SCORE connection?
So my name is Luann. She probably can read. See that. I am in Lodi, California. We grow wine here. And I do go to Wyoming, but I have been over the last year, mostly based out of California. I'm retired from critical care, inpatient. I'm taking this class because I'm very excited about figuring out a way to repackage myself and connect with people one-on-one through real education. So you have time to identify their needs and help them with wellness and self-care and self-empowerment. And Karen just has a totally awesome course for this. So on the I got very excited about the score. So Lodi is about 45 minutes from Modesto, California, which has a very strong business structure. I've been thinking about joining Rotary. And so they have a huge SCORE chapter in Modesto. And I actually could reach out to a friend who is very involved in Rotary and give him some of the names that I see on the screen and see, like, I guess, who I should talk to. But I was very excited about that because that's within driving distance.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. And I'm just delighted to see all your faces again this week. And I want to introduce our fabulous speaker, and I mean fabulous speaker. So I'm going to share the screen. And then after I finish introducing Sarah, then she can tell you about her experience about being a volunteer SCORE mentor. So here we go. And there's all this stuff up here, which we're going to get rid of. I hate Adobe Acrobat that just keeps showing up on the screen, and it's very annoying. And, I don't know that I can get rid of it. I had to turn off the computer earlier today. So let's see, what else can we do here? Let me try one more thing. And at worst, I can just Google Sarah. Well, that's very interesting. So Sarah, I'm going to introduce you. Why don't you tell them about your SCORE experience? I'm going to look up your CV, your wonderful webpage on.
Yeah, sure.
So
So
go ahead first.
hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks to Karen for always bringing me back into these conversations. So yeah, I will just say my experience with SCORE. So I started my first company in search engine optimization in 2003. And at the time, there was really hardly anybody working in SEO, which is sort of a part of digital marketing. And there were certainly almost no women working in the field at all. And so I met somebody, we decided to start a company, and we just kind of like jumped in full force. And at that time I joined SCORE, and I think the most powerful thing for me is that I was not a person who had thought I would be a business owner, right? I never woke up as a kid and was like, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, or I'm going to work for myself. I come from a long ancestral line of working class people who get stuff done. And so that's kind of how I lived my life. So moving into this world of kind of owning my own company and then starting in a field that not a lot of people understood, making up basically my services and products in the beginning. All of that, I was so well guided by people from SCORE. And a lot of times, when you deal with the folks who are volunteers at SCORE, they are retired executives. So they're people who already finished their career, but they've made quite a bit of money, or they've been really successful. And that was just a perspective that I really did not have any context for. So I had the same SCORE mentor for 12 years. His name was Stan. And I celebrated 20 years in business last year. And I will always wish that Stan had still been around to be there and support me. But, he was probably almost 40 years older than me when we met. But I feel like he was really the person who looked at me and was like, you can be a business owner. Anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. It's like, it's not about where you come from or whether or not you went to school for business or any of that stuff. He was like, you just have to be passionate, and you have to really want to show up and make your own way. And so I will just say, like, that's something I really enjoyed hearing from everybody, is how deeply you feel about your patients and your communities. And, when you have that type of motivation, like really, stepping into this world, it seems really scary when you first do it, but I don't know, like, so many of us are capable of doing things like this. And I really learned that from SCORE. And so they're a great group. I still mentor with them. Like Karen said, now I often talk to business owners about different technology issues, because they are a bunch of retired folks that sometimes don't always know the latest about technology. So I've become one of their sort of resources for all of that. And I get to meet lots of new business owners and I get to teach classes for them. And so usually they'll have a mixture of counseling and classes that you can plug into. And the great thing is they're funded by the government. So almost every single thing that they do is free. And they're mandated to do that, to provide classes and consulting for businesses or people that are looking to, open a venture on their own. That's really what they're supposed to be doing. So it's people that just want to keep giving back once they're sort of done with their career. And I just highly recommend if you can find, and also don't be afraid if you connect in. Some of you have a lot of opportunities. Maybe there's multiple people that you could mentor with. Don't be afraid to sort of meet with a counselor and then say, this person's not right for me, and ask them to introduce you to somebody else. They're like, every SCORE chapter pretty much knows they want to partner you with somebody that's going to be really helpful. And so, it is a really good idea, like Lisa said, to figure out who might be the best fit, and don't be afraid to change it up if you need to do that. Because that's definitely how I got to Stan. And I'm from New Jersey originally, and he was from New York, and we always felt like that was the bond. It was like this sort of honest, smack talking attitude that we both had that really bonded us. And even though we had very different backgrounds.
Awesome. So, hey, Mark, welcome. Will you share your screen and pull up sarahbenoit.com? Because I want to introduce her, and this is her killer. That's not the way he's going to pull this up. This is a new one I haven't seen, and I giggled all day. Okay. So this is Sarah's sparkling fun website, and you're going to see, I'm going to just point out a couple things. You'll see Sarah Benoit's name there at the top. Then you're going to see home. Then you're going to see Meet Sarah. Then you're going to see contact. And then you're going to see JB Media. So wait a minute, Mark. Wait. So I want to just say she has a wonderful quote. Real emotion is the heart of all impactful marketing. And so page down, Mark, a little bit. I am an educator, speaker, web designer, and consultant. Laugh loud, communicate directly, and get shit done. I love that part. And then you see over here, JB Media, web design development, training and public speaking. Keep going down, Mark. Marketing Real Talk. The world of marketing has drastically changed since my career began in 2003. Some industries like search engine optimization and website design are almost unrecognizable from what they used to be in the early 2000s, but it isn't just the technology that's changed. So these are the conversations I love to have. So if you're ready to embrace this new reality, let's chat. Keep going down a little bit more. So then you can see sign up. Keep going down a little bit more. Keep going down a little bit more. Testimonials and awards. Okay, now go back up a little bit more to the top of the web page, Mark. All the way and do Meet Sarah. Click on Meet Sarah. And so I love her website because Mark, go back up. She is a passionate and professional internet marketing strategist. She's been a resident of Asheville since August 1999, and her professional background is in professional writing, media relations, and event production, office management, and customer service. Go down to entrepreneurship, Mark. She began her first company as a managing partner, marketing director of City Communications. And then she closed that and started Creative Originals. And she's now I'm down to awards and accolades. She's a proud graduate of Leadership Asheville 31. And she's a member of 2014 Asheville 40 Under 40. And she's honored to receive the Asheville Woman Up Woman Executive of the Year Award in 2017. Keep going down a little bit longer. And then you can just see she's got great icons of different community things she's done. Keep going. And then she has samples of things and training she's presented. Keep going down, Mark, a little bit longer. There's more, and there's more, and there's more, and there's more. And hire me for your next training conference. So thank you, Mark. I give you Sarah Benoit. She's been my webmaster for 8 years.
Yeah.
So anyway, so she's awesome. Can't say enough good about her.
Thank you so much, Karen. I really appreciate it. Just so y'all know, I really can't believe Karen and I we're going to have to do something special when we hit the 10-year mark I just had the pleasure of meeting Karen right as she decided to really move into advocacy, patient advocacy. And so I've really just gotten to watch her go from the very beginning all the way to where she's at now, which is super exciting. And I feel like it's such an amazing thing to watch people take that journey and make it happen. And that's where I wanted to start today. Before we dive into the slides and talking about digital marketing, I wanted to go back to something I said about SCORE earlier, which is as you begin this whole journey of figuring out what the next step is or how you want to alter or shift what you've been doing in your career, I just really want to encourage you that the biggest thing that you can do in this process is realize that you don't have to do everything. You don't have to do everything. So in business, even just in marketing, people are going to give you like 1 billion ideas. There will always be something that you could be doing. There's always going to be a ton of stuff you're not doing. There's always going to be this like endless list of things where you're like, oh my gosh, this is a pile. I'm never going to make it through. I just want you to know, like, just let it go now at the beginning of the process. It doesn't matter, right? Like at the end of the day, all you have to do is keep moving forward. That's what you have to do. And you have to figure out a way eventually to make money. That's what we all have to do. We got to get a way to make the money flow, right? But how we do it is so individual to each one of us. How we do it is really about who we are, who our community is, what industry we're in. I often feel like those of us that start small businesses or maybe even micro enterprises in the beginning, where there's just one of us, right? We often end up getting a lot of suggestions that I think are more for companies that have lots of people involved in them, not for companies that are small businesses or micro enterprises. And so just knowing in the beginning that you aren't responsible for doing it all, it's like a process. The more that you're working on the business, the more it's going to shift and become more what people say a business is. And sometimes for some of us, we get to a certain point and we're happy. So for me, my web design company is a good example. I love designing websites, but I don't want to do it 40 hours a week. I want to take certain clients that I really love to work with, and I want to work with them. And I specifically want to work with small companies. I don't want to work with large companies. I actually have a cap on how big of a website I will make. So if you want to spend $25,000 on a website, I won't say yes, because I don't want to deal with that. Right? Like that's not my bread and butter. It's not where I'm really happy. And so a lot of times in the business world, they'll say to you, no, you're supposed to want more. No. What we're supposed to want is what we want. And what we define as successful and what we define as important. And so, I don't need 1,000 customers a month. If I have 8, I'm doing really well, right? I'm growing, I'm getting paid. So just giving you that perspective, because I was meeting with some younger people this morning who are all sort of moving into entrepreneurship. And that was like the biggest thing we talked about is don't get caught up in the hype. And in marketing, you're going to find the same thing applies. There are a million new platforms. Everybody's going to tell you you have to do everything. Like literally people are going to be like, oh, you're starting a business, you have to have an Instagram and a Facebook and an email list and a blog and a website and a TikTok and a LinkedIn and a Pinterest and a YouTube, right? And you basically, it sort of scares you away from the whole experience right out the gate. It's like, none of that is true. All that you actually have to do is show up every day, motivate yourself to do what needs to be done, to build what you really have in mind. And then you do have to figure out how to make people give you money. That's somewhere along the way, we got to make that happen. But I really want you to feel empowered that you get to decide how that works. For any of you that are really excited about the idea of working for yourself, I mean, this is the beauty, right? The beauty is eventually when you need to do something, you're the boss and you give yourself permission to do it. And when something needs to shift, you decide that it shifts, right? Even when you start to get staff and things like that, it's like you become sort of the leader of your endeavor and your venture, which is super exciting. And I think if we embrace that, it's really great. And for too long, I think lots of people have been kept out of entrepreneurship. Even people who've been working for themselves and making their own money for 20 years won't feel like they're a business owner. And it's because we have some weird cultural thing where we're like, It's Elon Musk, you know, it's Donald Trump, it's, you know, it's Jeff Bezos. Like, just saying, boo, it isn't. They are not the majority of the business owners. The majority of the business owners are like you and I, right? They're actually just working people who had great ideas. The number of people that were born feeling like they were going to start a company, I actually don't feel like they are the majority of people that actually run small businesses across the country. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I just wanted to start out with that. So I think it's important because it feels awkward in the beginning. I felt very awkward the first few years because, again, I was a person I always call myself the accidental entrepreneur. I was just getting laid off of my corporate healthcare job when I was like 26. And a person said to me, do you want to start a company with me? And I was like, well, I know I don't want to stay in corporate healthcare. And so I just went with it, right? Like, I took an opportunity and I jumped in. So today in the first hour, we're going to talk a little bit about digital marketing in general and branding and just sort of some baseline business stuff. And then the second half, we're going to talk about websites in particular, because I think they're really important. Like Karen said, my main job, even though I still run Creative Original and I do own that company, I do SEO and web design. I'm also the co-founder and lead instructor of the JB Media Institute, which I actually started with my biggest competitor 13 years ago as of April 1st. So my biggest competitor became my biggest client, and then he became my business partner. And he was the way that I was able to take my businesses and make teaching and presenting and consulting like the bulk of what I actually do. So I get to travel and speak and teach. I was teaching all day today. I taught Canva for creatives about how to do your own graphic design. I talked to, like I said, a group of young people at the chamber this morning about how to be authentic in the workplace. So I have a lot of fun traveling around, and I'm still doing marketing in a lot of different ways and consulting on campaigns and advertising, all sorts of different communications things. So marketing is this huge, it's just a giant world of everything. I feel like at this point, marketing is the study of human behavior, and particularly the study of how and why we buy things in a lot of ways, right? And so it encompasses so many different things. There's so much that you could read about and study about in this world. But I think in order to start running your own business, you first have to think about how you're going to represent yourself online, because that's a primary way that people are going to connect with you. And there's so many different ways they can do that. So it might be that you start with just an email list. You know, it might be that you start with just a simple Facebook page. But at the end of the day, there's some core things that we have to have in place in order to do things like that. The first one is really thinking about the branding. Now, again, if you Googled this, you'd hear a lot of stuff from a company perspective, and that often doesn't translate into what if I'm just a single person starting a venture and working for myself and taking patients, right? Or maybe I'm going to offer some new services at the new clinic I'm at. How do I kind of approach that? The truth is, there's a part of branding called personal branding. And that's sometimes where people start when they're first branching out on their own, right? And it, you know, decisions like whether or not you have a company name versus whether or not you use your own name, there's no right or wrong. That's actually just up to you. I used my company name for many years, Creative Original. But when I turned 40, I realized nobody actually cared where I worked. What was happening was people met me and liked me. And so when they were looking for things, they were looking for Sarah Benoit. And so I just decided to put everything under that umbrella. So it was just easier for people to find me. And then I'm doing all sorts of things. And my goal is, it doesn't matter what I'm doing, you're into it, right? Like, so maybe someday I'll get crazy and I'll become a welder or whatever, and I'll still expect everybody to be interested in what I'm doing. I really thought of it from a more personal perspective. So you have that choice, and that choice is really up to you. You're kind of free to make those choices to sort of create something that sort of stands outside of you, or to focus on yourself as the main brand. And to me, the reason we have to talk about branding is because branding and marketing work together. And I feel like branding is the root of your marketing, right? It's like the core, it's the thing that you're founded on. This is one of my favorite quotes about branding. And it talks about how it should precede and underlie marketing efforts, that branding is not push, but it's the pull, right? But most of all, I feel like this last line, the brand is what remains after the marketing has swept the room. So whether somebody talked to you on the phone, or they looked at your website, or they came and had a meeting with you, or they went to your YouTube channel, whatever they did, they picked up your brochure, they should be getting the same feeling. They should be getting the same message. It should be consistent and it should be clear what you're about. And so that's why we have to sort of form a brand whenever we build a business. And again, brands evolve. They're not static. They don't stay the same forever. They're based on people, so they should grow and change. But when you get really clear about what it is that you want to do, and you sort of know, like, this is my message, this is the values of what we're doing, these are the audiences that we want to serve, our community members, the people that we care about. That leads you into that next step of choosing visuals. You know, what is my logo? What colors do I want to use? What name do I want for the company? All of that stuff comes out of this sort of core, overall like foundation that you're building for the company. That's the brand, right? And a lot of times we think of branding as basically the logo and the colors and the fonts, but I feel like it's the stories and it's the driving mission and vision that you have. Like all of that is part of the brand. Because I think in the simplest terms, the brand, when you start a business or you start a venture on your own, even if you were just going to start a project, right? The first thing you want to ask yourself is how do we want this to make people feel? Right? Because that feeling that you're creating, it's their motivation to say yes to you and pay you. Like they're integrally connected, those two things, right? So we want to get clear on that. And so in the beginning, a lot of times people are used to seeing in business, we got logos, I've got some photos, I know what colors I want to use, right? We've got some graphic assets. But I feel like really when we want to put together kind of a vision for the brand, we want to also include like the language, right, that we want to use and not use. So how would we describe what we do? How would we describe our potential patients or customers, you know, our clients? What are our mission and vision statements, right? How can we create sort of personas or avatars and imagine who our best customers will be? Who are the people that really need us? Who are the people that really need the services or the products that we're going to provide? And even creating quotes for yourself, things that inspire you, things that keep you motivated. When you put all of this together in a document or even in a folder, let's say on Google Drive or on your desktop or, you know, in Dropbox, what you're creating is like a solid sort of foundation or root for whenever you're getting busy and the business is stressful and you've got too many things to do or you're confused about the next step, that you go back to this part of you that's really connected into the foundation of what you created. So it's really just getting in touch with yourself and remembering, this is why we're doing what we're doing. This is who we're doing it for. This is the feeling we're trying to give people. So I just remind everybody, when you're working on your own ventures, it can get really intense sometimes. And there can be too many options, too many things flying around, and you'll feel behind. You'll start judging yourself, but then you'll still have things to do and you'll have to deliver. And in that process, sometimes we really, everything just becomes like a heavy burden. And I feel like the way to release that burden as a business owner and as a creative person in general, and an empathetic person, is to really make sure that I take time sometimes to go back to the core of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And when you put something like this together, as you move forward with your business and as you grow your sort of reputation and your image, it's going to be so much easier because you have these things in place and you're able to communicate them to other people. So it also sets you up to delegate things when it's appropriate. It sets you up to really say, you know what, here's where I can handle things. Here, I need help with this particular piece, but I can communicate to you clearly. This is what our company is. This is what we're about. This is who we serve. This is why we're doing it. Because anybody that ever helps you with your business, you have to be able to tell them that clearly. A lot of times businesses are using similar strategies to achieve success, but the nitty gritty of how we do those strategies is always unique and different based on who we are and who our communities are, who our audiences are, right? Everything is the same, but totally different. It's kind of the paradox of even just building kind of a company that has a reputation. So any questions? I want to stop before we get into storytelling. Are there any questions, just really quick, about branding or anything that you've wanted to know about that aspect of stuff? Creating logos or coming up with the names or? We are-
Sarah, I have another organization called Regalia Making Relatives. And that's how, I mean, I didn't know anything about it. And we had a young artist. She's the one that made our logo for us. And we still haven't even made a website page or anything, because everything that you just said earlier about, you just get overwhelmed. And everybody keeps telling me, well, you got to do all these things. And I'm like, I can barely do Facebook. And there's just no way I can do all the other social media that's available. I can't keep up with my Facebook. So, I mean, everything you're spot on, everything that you're saying.
No, I'm so glad. I always tell people it's really important that you realize it would be better for you to do one marketing thing really well and give it 110% than it would to have like 7 marketing things and everything's only getting 15% of your energy. Like literally then nothing works.
Yes.
Or everything just gets random results. And so that's where like my very first company, I pretty much built just networking. Like for 3 straight years, I just shook hands with people and I got clients, you know? And so we didn't, even though we were a digital business, most of the clients I got had nothing to do with the internet. They had to do with who I knew in my community and who needed help.
Yes.
So
We are
yes.
a community organization, and everything's, word of mouth, how we get people to join us. I mean, they're not clients or anything. It's just activities that we do in our community for healing purposes.
Yeah.
But it's just, I mean, now we're up to 70 people that attend our class every month.
Yeah.
And that's just word of mouth. So
yeah. And
yeah.
so I'll just throw out that I think the coolest thing is you don't really need to add more channels. You need to figure out where are most of the people. What's the best channel for getting in front of the majority of them if you can, right?
Mhm.
And that might be the best
Yeah.
way to make the first decision. It's just like, I living in rural North Carolina, it's funny. Even if you hate Facebook, I always say Facebook's what's getting in a holler. Like if you want to get down in the holler 3 counties from here, let me tell you, it's Facebook. I wish it was something else, but it's not. And so like I'm always telling people, if that's the one thing you can focus on right now, and we know that's where your community is, we're making those connections, that's good enough. We can do Instagram later when we have more bandwidth. We can do it when we have more hands to help, or more volunteers, or we hire somebody. We can do all that stuff down there. We'll always be able to add more. But in the beginning, we want to go where people are already having a great time. All right, so I'm going to jump back into story
Well, I
time.
think Jennifer had a question.
Oh yeah, jump on in.
So I was going to say that last week, Lisa Seeds and I got together, and my husband's retired. So he has plenty of time to do what I ask him to do. And he was so excited after Lisa and I met, and we pinned down our domain names, and he did research for phone companies or phone packages that we can do. And it's a lot. It was very exciting while he was doing it. And then I've reflected for the last 6 days, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot. I mean, we definitely need to get a score mentor, because we need to look at grants, and how to apply for grants and where to do that. So it seems overwhelming when you stop and take a breath and look at everything we do need to do. I'm thankful that, my husband's retired and he's an IT, geek. So that'll help us a little bit, but it does seem a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah, I think it's important to pace yourself for sure, Jennifer. And sometimes I often, like when I think back to starting out in 2003 and just literally having zero idea what I was doing. Like I basically started the company, and then about 3 months in, I was like, I need to take a business class. was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And so I went to a cool class here called Foundations. And that organization is still around, but it's, like I literally just dove in like feet first. And I really had to learn in the beginning, like each week I just tried to do what I could do and really be clear on what I couldn't do. So I could go to my business partner and say, you wanted me to do this, but I don't understand what I'm supposed to do. I need help. And so really like separating out kind of like, here's the things that I can do on my own. Then I figured out there's some things I can Google. There's some things I can research. Now there is a bunch of things you could probably use ChatGPT or Google Gemini to help you understand, even for free. And so, there's lots of different ways now that we can more quickly and easily understand things. But there's two things I often recommend to people, be realistic with yourself. Like how much new information can you crunch in 1 week? And what does that look like? And set aside time to research things or think about things, but also take 1 day off every week and do not give it up. Do not give it up, right? Like have 1 day a week where you don't worry about work. I know that's hard for a lot of us because our culture is really, really focused on working in so many different ways and being productive and all of that. But I really wish somebody had told me that, because 7 years in, I kind of cracked off and went crazy right after the 2008 economic downturn. And, that was from not taking a day off for about 9 months, right? I worked every day for 9 months. I was trying to solve problems. And then I just became a lunatic, and I just wish somebody had told me it didn't help for me to do that. I didn't solve any problems more quickly. I didn't make any more money, right? I actually just tortured myself for the better part of a year. And so when people are like, what's your number one piece of advice? I'm like, you always have a day off and you walk away. You walk away, because when you come back refreshed and well slept and motivated, you can like make it through the fact that you're challenging yourself to learn a whole bunch of new stuff. I just think that's essential. So again, jump in if there's any other questions as we go along. The other thing about marketing I just wanted to throw in really quickly is that marketing is really about telling your story. So I feel like a lot of times when we talk about marketing, people feel like, ugh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to promote myself. I don't like talking about me. I don't like, making myself the center of attention. I don't feel comfortable with it. I really just have to say, I really defy all of that. Human beings are storytellers. For thousands of years, this is what we do. We meet around the fire and we blah, 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 sing a song, do a dance, whatever we're doing. And we're really saying, like, look at what's happening with the people around us. Look at what's happening with our community. Look at what's happening with us, right? So I actually feel that marketing is kind of an innate skill for most of us. It's the detail of how to do it that gets stressful. But actually, just like connecting with others, quote unquote, putting yourself out there, promoting yourself, there's a connotation there that I think comes from a long history, again, of business culture in the United States, just being sort of toxic and not very human-centered and kind of extractive in most cases. But the truth is that really what marketing is reaching out to people, telling the story of what you do and seeing if anybody needs help. That's really all it is. It's not more than that. There's just a lot of stuff over centuries and centuries that is now attached to it. But I think telling our stories, quote unquote, marketing, communicating who we are, what we're doing and how we can support people, that is actually supernatural to all of us. And so the number one way to get more like comfortable with marketing and promoting is to just make people the center of what you're doing. That's just a choice, right? To make them the center, to put their experience first, to think about how they feel, what they need, what they want. In essence, I feel like marketing truly comes down to just being great customer service and treating people in a good way. And so it isn't some magical thing that some people are good at and other people aren't good at. I think we just have to reframe in the business world why this hasn't always been what we've focused on, right? We're always so focused on like shareholders and just never ending, like I said, making more and more and more and being super extractive of the situations. It does not have to be like that. And the truth is, as we've moved forward over the last 25 years, how we make people feel has become increasingly important from a business perspective, right? Younger generations, especially, they don't want to be talked into buying things they don't need. They don't want to be wasteful. They want to actually like know the value of something and choose to spend their money on it. I think that's been like every generation is gotten sort of more and more into that part of it and away from just consumerism, because it's not sustainable. Consumerism in general is just not a sustainable approach to life. So we have to sort of move on. In marketing, what we really talk about is storytelling, because you can all Google lots of stuff about how to tell a story. But what I'm really interested in is more of the science of why storytelling matters and how it's literally like a part of the human spirit. It's part of our DNA. It's part of how our neurological function exists, right? Storytelling is connected to how we tap into the emotional part of who we are. And when that part of our brain is tapped, a bunch of things happen. One thing is we make decisions. And so I often laugh that in especially our Western culture, we're convinced that we're very logical and rational. But if you actually study the brain, none of us make decisions devoid of our emotional like seat, right? So there's a part of the brain that they call the emotional seat of the brain. Decisions do not get made without it. We are never 100% cognitive, right? We're never 100% logical. That's just actually not real. It's not actually the human experience. And what I think is interesting is when they study this, the harder the decisions are, the more variables there are, the more complicated or stressful the decision is. It's not the cognitive part of our brain that gets stronger. It's the emotional part of our brain that gets stronger. So our feelings are literally what allow us to take action, right? In addition to that, the emotional part of our brain imprints things more deeply on our memory. So if we feel something about a situation, a person, a company, a product, we remember it later. When there is no feeling, it's deleted. It's not important, right? And so to me, that's where in marketing, we sort of got to this point, I think, in the 80s and 90s, where it was like, all right, we can keep trying to manipulate people's feelings and getting them to buy stuff so the consumer machine can survive forever. Or we could think about how we actually tell real authentic stories and we connect people to other people for important reasons, for things that matter. And so that storytelling piece, I think, as you're learning marketing, as you're promoting yourself, again, when it feels weird or it feels uncomfortable, or it's maybe you're like, I don't really like this, you know, it's like, go back into how you're telling your story. What are those things that are really core, that really matter, that you can be talking about? It doesn't always have to be sell, sell, sell. It doesn't always have to be about how much money you're going to get from other people. It really can just be you talking about how you were in one career and now you're in another. That story can be really meaningful and motivate people to come to you for what they need, right? I always use the example that I'm a minister's daughter, and I share that in a lot of different situations. It's part of sort of my story of, you know, I've always been a little bit of a rebel, and I like to do what I want. And, you know, that inspired me a lot to become a business owner. It inspired me a lot to want to lift up other business owners by supporting them with, you know, communications and marketing knowledge and technology. So to me, like, that's a really personal story. It's like the literal story of my whole childhood. But the truth is it's become a huge tool for people being able to relate to me, because every time I'm in a room and I say something about that, everybody in the room is going to be like, oh yeah, I knew a preacher's kid. You know, they were either the best person or they were the problem person. And it immediately makes me familiar. And then they remember me a little bit more out of all the other people they met at a conference or out of all the other people they met, you know, in a class. And so that stuff is really valuable. You know, it's like, that's where I think we all have natural ability here. And we don't have to make things up. We don't have to be pretending to be something we're not. We need to actually just show up and be real about what we have to offer and find the other people who really need it. And that is something that should come easy. And the more that you get comfortable with your vision of what you want to create for a business, the easier that part of it gets, right? One of the key steps that you all can take just to get started in working on this is to write a mission and vision statement. We don't really have time to dig into this too much, but I gave you some real clear kind of structures to follow so you could work on these if you hadn't worked on them before. There's also lots of other things out there you could write, like a statement of purpose. You can write out your company values. You can write out your brand promise. There's all sorts of different lingo about this, but mission and vision, I feel like, are pretty straightforward, and almost every company has some version of this, even if they're a tiny company of one person. And so a mission statement really is going to define the community or organization or company's current and immediate goals and its approach to those objectives. So what are we going to accomplish and how are we going to accomplish it, right? And the vision statement is usually more like forward thinking and aspirational. It's more about like, this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing it, this is who we're doing it for, maybe in our mission, but then this is why, and this is what we see we're going to build for the long term, right? So it's kind of being a little bit more in the moment and then being a little bit more looking at the future of what you want to create, right? And so they say your vision statement should inspire people to dream and your mission statement should inspire them to do something, right? So it's really like getting people on board with your vision can sometimes make you more relatable to them. And then really getting them to say yes to hiring you is because they really resonate with what your mission is. And so, these things are important again, because I think they become a cornerstone of how you go back to what really matters. Whenever there's just lots of decisions to make, or you've got a busy week, I've definitely seen Karen certain weeks where she's got classes and patients with emergencies and, other things going on all at once. And sometimes, I really feel like when you get in that moment, it's like, take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, go back, remember why we're doing this, refuel yourself a little bit, right? Figure out what you need to do to get grounded. And a lot of times, to me, the mission and vision can be really grounding for that. And it helps you, like I said, really identify what matters the most to you, what is really juicing you and like pushing you forward. Because again, the beauty of being your own boss is nobody can tell you what to do. But then again, nobody will be telling you what to do, right? So if you don't go to work, you're only losing to yourself. Like you're the only person critiquing whether or not you showed up, especially in the beginning. And so sometimes, when I want to just like ground out about that and just remind myself, hey, this is why we're putting all this effort in. Because I think it does take quite a while to get in the groove, to find your groove. And sometimes if you're leaving a career and starting a business, there's like a long process where one becomes the other. And it's like, sometimes you want to use this as your grounding point. So with missions and vision, I just put some examples in here. And like I said, some sort of guidelines. So your mission must describe what you're going to do and why. It needs to be pretty concise, outcome oriented, and inclusive, because sometimes people will include certain audiences if they're focusing in on like a niche audience. They might even mention that. And then the vision is usually very concise as well, although I think mission statements are sometimes a little longer. They can sometimes be a sentence or two, but vision statements are usually very concise and very clear and really about, like I said, this future that you're ultimately working towards, right? And it's sort of that bigger picture piece. It's that 10,000 foot view of what you want to see happen 10 years from now or 20 years from now. And again, it doesn't have to be some lofty thing. It can be very practical, but it's just about thinking about that future goal. So here's just some examples. The Human Rights Campaign, the mission, working to achieve LGBT equality, the vision, equality for everyone. Right? Feeding America, to feed America's hungry through a nationwide network of member food banks and engage our country in the fight to end hunger. But their vision for the future is a hunger-free America, right? So I feel like it makes sense how these things are interconnected. And here's San Diego Zoo's. Theirs is a little bit longer, but the San Diego Zoo is a conservation, education, and recreation organization dedicated to the reproduction, production, and exhibition of animals, plants, and their habitats. But their vision is to become a world leader at connecting people to wildlife and conservation. So I've included a few others in here that you can take a look at, but I really suggest in the beginning, before you dive into marketing or even building your website, in some ways that you spend a little time on this so that when you're talking about your website with another person, or let's say you're designing it yourself, you really start to already have in mind, here's the people that we want to serve. Here's what we're offering them. This is why we're doing it. Because those stories, you want them woven through the website. That's what's going to make the website memorable. That's what's going to make somebody call you, right? Is if you've woven these things together. And this is pretty basic. You know, Maya Angelou, everybody quotes her, but it's so true, right? People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but they never forget how you made them feel. I would almost even add to this, sometimes people will forget who you are. They'll forget your name, they'll forget where they met you, but when they met you, you made them feel good. And so they're like, hey, don't I know you from so, you know, like, and so it really is about that emotional component and how we tell stories to each other and we make those connections. So we're going to take a break before we dip into website basics. But I'd love, how are y'all feeling about this? Does this resonate? Does this make sense? Awesome. I appreciate all the head nods and the thumbs up. Karen knows I worked in corporate healthcare for a brief period when I thought I could have a corporate job, which turned out was not the case. I have such a big heart for everybody working in healthcare and in wellness and in all aspects of that space, because I think you all already have a leg up because you are so centered around people. Otherwise, you never would have had the careers that you had, right? And so I think when it comes to building a business and marketing, I just want you to remember, sometimes when you go into the business world and you start sharing with other people, hey, I'm going to start my own venture. I'm going to start my own firm. I'm going to start my own program. People have a lot of advice for you, and sometimes they will really push back on being too empathetic, being too kind, giving too much. And I do think there is something that all of us have to look at when it comes to getting paid what we're worth and getting really good at asking for money and being clear about how we're going to package what we sell. And I think that's something you can explore with SCORE and something that you'll get better and better at. Especially I think once you've had a job working for other people for a long time, telling somebody that they're going to sign a contract with you and just pay you money because you said so is like it's a reframing of how you do things. But I really want to argue that like the business world has changed. And the answer isn't being colder and being more businessy and being more bossy and being more money oriented. Like these are not that's not the path to success. I would really argue that anybody who's still preaching that is in an antiquated old paradigm and needs to move on. Like truly, I think at this point, business has moved into such a deeply empathetic direction, such a direction of we all need to uplift each other. Right. And like, I am uplifted when I get paid well, and I'm able to then go pay other people well. So this is like where working class people really help uplift each other. Small businesses can work together. There can be just lots of approaches to business that are very collaborative that I think are still not really celebrated in the same way. We think of Shark Tank. You know, we think of that stuff, and it's not to say there's no place for that, but I think there is a bigger place for really just being yourself. There's a bigger place for really serving people as a business, not just extracting from them. And even in the corporate world, we're seeing that. My business partner's company is B Corp certified, which basically means he has a corporate structure that says that it's focused on sustainability. It's focused on fair pay. It's focused on treating people equally across the board in their hiring practices, right? And so they actually are buying into that corporate structure with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other companies across the country to say, we don't believe that the direction of corporate America is right. We think that it's harmful. And so that's something that I think is exciting for all of you as you start this journey right now in like 2024. It's not the same old world that we've been living in. A lot of things have changed, a lot of perspectives have changed, and there's real opportunity, I think, to make a big difference. So I know I'm going to say, let's take like till about 8:10, and then we're going to come back and talk about websites, but that way you can clear your head. And I'm here for questions if anybody has additional questions. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about websites, and in true teacher style there's a lot of slides here, but you'll get a copy of these slides from Karen. And this is really so that you can dig into more detail. Again, you're not necessarily going to be able to remember everything that I say about websites. So what I want you to think about while we're talking about this is just, is there something that piques your interest or gets you excited? Websites are a lot of work. You can do it yourself, but I often tell people, if you're going to do it yourself, start really simple. Don't let people convince you that you have to make some giant website. And you might even decide that it is better to hire somebody. And if you can get really clear on what you want up online, even if it's just 1 page or 3 pages at first, then you can choose a really good person to kind of help you make these decisions if you want. And sometimes you can, find people, especially if you go with a local provider, you might be able to find somebody who can do it for an affordable price in a lot of ways. There's a few things about websites people need to just sort of understand from a language standpoint. And we touched on this before, just talking about buying domain names, right? I think it's important to know that when you have a website, there's 3 things that are always part of the website: hosting, domain, website platform. Now, the interesting thing is that I can pay for hosting on one company, buy a domain from a different company, and then pay a different company for my website platform. Or some systems, I just pay 1 monthly fee and it's all built in. Or some platforms, I get the hosting and the platform for a monthly fee, but maybe I bought my domain on GoDaddy, right? And so there's lots of different ways that this kind of plays out. I think it's a good idea sometimes to think about, like, if you've already bought a domain from a company. So some of you maybe bought a .com or a .net or a .org, and you've got it saved somewhere. Maybe it's GoDaddy, maybe it's register.com or something like that. Then when you go to build your website, what's going to happen is they're going to tell you that you have to change the DNS, right? You're going to have to adjust settings on your domain so that when people type in that website address, it takes them to the server where your website is hosted. So again, you're going to run into some technical things if you start buying things separately. And if that feels stressful, there are a lot of ways you could just buy it all together, right? And not have things in different places that you have to renew. The other thing about this is most of the time when you're making a payment for one or all of these things, you essentially are going to have to renew it regularly. So whether it's every year, once a month, every 3 years, every 5 years, a lot of times you can save money if you buy things for longer amounts of time. But essentially there is going to be renewal periods where you have to pay it again. So it's a repeating expense that your company has when you first build a website. And even if you just buy a domain, you're going to pay that $20 a year every year, right? To have it, or $10 or whatever you paid. Website platforms are really how you build the website itself. So every website is actually just code. And inside of the code is kind of like a structure, right? That structure is what builds what everything looks like and the interfaces that we're kind of playing with when we're using the internet like we are right now. And so everything has basically a platform. We often refer to this as a CMS, a content management system. And those came around. WordPress was really one of the biggest ones in 2004, 2005. And the reason they kind of really changed the game is because you could build a website or a blog on their system. And when you built a website, you had this really easy to use content management system. So now all of a sudden I didn't have to make all the edits to the website, right? My clients, I could teach them how to make the edits, right? I would have a little editor for all their text and things like that. So this was a big leap in the early 2000s to go from a time where web designers and people who wrote code had to be the ones making all the changes to actually lay people being able to make the changes, right? So now this is the standard. Now, any website that you purchase, you should be able to make some edits to it yourself. The designer, even if you hired a person, should be able to show you how to make those changes yourself. And if you build your own website, you're going to basically be learning how to make those changes yourself as you build the website, right? So, it's really important to know this is really the standard. You shouldn't expect to have somebody that's just handling it all the time for you unless you hire them to do that every month because you don't want to handle it, right? You want to delegate it. And all platforms are going to have some sort of learning curve. I'm going to recommend my favorite platforms, but all of them, again, if you've never built a website before and you've never used the platform, which is basically software, you have to give yourself some time to learn it. You're not just going to hop on there and build a website. It's going to take a little while, and you might have to watch some videos and look at some tutorials and things like that. Before you build your website, I think planning is the key to everything. If you don't want it to feel stressful, then you're going to actually make a plan first. So this is kind of my basic beginning plan that I walk my own clients through, right? So first, I want to know, what is your company, your products, your services? What are you about? Right? Do you have photos? Do you have a logo? Like, so if I was your designer, I'd immediately be asking for your brand kit, for your style guide, right? I'd be like, do you have all these things ready? So again, when you go to hire somebody like me, the great thing is if you already have thought about your style guide, you get to hand them some direction visually and creatively about what you want to see. So first, I'm going to make sure I've got all that organized, right? Then I'm really going to talk about the audiences. Who do we think our best customers are going to be? Now, I know that for most of us, we could probably have a wide variety of different customers. There's probably many different types of patients you all could support. There's many different community members that you could support. So there's two ways to think about this. One is demographics, which is, I know that locally my audience is mostly going to be people over 40, and some of them are going to have kids, and some of them are married, and some of them are single. And I know they're going to be in this income bracket. Maybe they're going to have a variety of different jobs, right? That's very demographic focused. But if I can serve any demographic, what I want to think about is, what are the values of my audiences? What are the problems that they need to solve? What are the questions that they need answered? What are the things that I can do to make them feel better, be super useful to them? Basically, I might have people of all ages, but they need to solve this problem in this area, and I'm able to solve that problem. So again, audiences aren't always just demographics. They're sometimes psychographics, which is actually their beliefs, their dreams, right? There can be lots of different personality types where there's a certain personality type that's good for me to work with. It doesn't matter how old they are. It doesn't matter where they live. It matters that they're like this. So when I do sales for my own company, one of the things that I often tell people is, I'm not good at being stressed. So my best clients are people that want to problem solve. They don't want to get angry. They don't want to freak out. They don't want to yell at the people around them. They don't want to be in a state of stress and tension. I'm just not good at that. I'll just go home. That's my problem, right? I'll just have to go to bed because I'm stressed out. And so I can't really look at life that way. I really need to look at problems as things we can solve, and we need to remain calm. We need to work together. All of my clients, that's what I ask of them, that when technology isn't working, or there's something stressful happening with their website, or there's something stressful happening with their marketing, that we don't all just start taking it out on each other, that we actually ground out and we figure out what we're going to do, right? I want to be proactive, not reactive. That is a value for me that is really, really important that my clients understand, right? So there are times when I'm sitting in a meeting with somebody and I can tell, even though I like them, they're a drama queen. And that's not going to work out well for me. Right? Like, it doesn't mean that I can't help you when things are going wrong, or that we shouldn't be human, but it does mean that our core value of how we handle certain things, I need to have alignment with that, right? Because I'm not distant from my clients. I'm in the trenches with them. I'm actually solving problems when they happen. I know what it's like, to run a small business and feel that stress. And so I want us to work together and come together in a strong way, not like blame each other in those instances. So your audiences might be demographic, but it might be these other things that really matter, right? It might be not the age that matters, or the location, or whether or not they're married, or whether or not they have kids, but it might be whether or not they're dealing with cancer. It might be whether or not they're dealing with a parent who's elderly, who's having certain issues, right? Those are problems that if you can solve them, there's a whole audience there, and it's not about their demographics, it's about their psychographics, it's about their experience, right? So again, there's lots you could Google about this. Audience personas, audience avatars. There's all sorts of cool free stuff on the internet to dig in and figure out how you can make sort of little guesses at like, who would my top 3 clients be? What are they like? What do they care about? What are they into? And then you really want to set goals for your website. So exactly what is the purpose of the website? What does it need to do for you? Right? How are you thinking people are going to find it? A lot of times people build a website, they come to me and they're like, nobody's finding it. And I'm like, well, you have to promote it. There's millions of websites on the internet. People don't just magically stumble upon them anymore. That's from the 90s, right? Like, I don't know about you all, but how many of you in the last few weeks have surfed the internet? Like, Matthew's done it a little bit. Good job. But most people, our devices are delivering stuff for us. We don't actually spend a lot of time just surfing random things, right? We go to the internet with like goals and intentions and stuff. So really, why are we building the website? You know, what is it going to do to serve our business? What do we think means how are we going to define that it's successful? And how do we think we're going to get people there? Because just existing is actually not enough to get people there, right? It's like you have to actually do some actions once the website is built. And then make a list of sites you like and don't like. It's okay if they're not in your industry, but just if you do want to surf the web and have some fun, when you're looking at some websites, if you're really enjoying a website, make note of the address, because later on you can come back to that as an example of the kind of website you might want to build in the future, and make notes about it. Like, what I love is how big the pictures are. I love that I can fill out a form and do this. I love that there's a video about this, but I don't like that, there's so much text on this page, it's overwhelming. I don't like the colors, they're terrible, right? It's okay to have opinions about that, because again, when you create your own website, it's kind of subjective in a lot of ways. And then the last piece to planning is just outlining all of the pages that you want on the website. So I'm going to just show an example of this really quick on my website. So can you all see my website again? The Sarah Benoit website should be up there. So like Karen was mentioning, I have this menu, home, Meet Sarah, contact, and this is the school that I'm running. Under Meet Sarah, I have a little more information about exactly what I do. I mapped this out before I ever built the website, right? I was like, I know I need one main homepage that just gives an overview of who I am and what I do, right? And kind of sets a tone, right? And then I know that I need a part that talks about all the different things that I personally offer, because I actually still offer some web design and SEO. I do a lot of public speaking. I do some higher level consulting. I was like, I want a page for each of those things. I don't want to try to combine them all on one page because it's too confusing. So I'm going to have like an overview of my background and my bio, and then I have a page for kind of each of the services that I'm using. And then I want one page for contact, right? Where they can book a consult. They can just know a little bit about how, booking a free consult works. And then this actually just takes you right to my school. So when you click on it, you actually go over to the website that's all about the training programs that I run, the JB Media Institute, right? And so I plotted all that out before I ever started building the website, because that way I knew what I was building. And each page is what we call a menu item, right? So consulting is a page, and it's also in my menu so that people can find it, right? And so just understanding that's how all websites pretty much work, right? And if you can sort of outline your vision for what you want on the website, maybe what photos you want to use, what text you want to have, what topics you want to talk about, what main points you want to use. You might refine that as you go along, but in the beginning, it's a really good idea to start mapping that out with ideas pretty quickly. And again, if you hired somebody to help you, this would be really awesome for them, because you're already giving them direction of what you want on the site. So there's a bunch of platforms I recommend. Canva is probably my favorite. And Canva is actually a great tool for making your own logos, making your own graphics for social media, making graphics for your website, editing your photos for your website. You can even build a website directly on Canva now. They do have a free version. It really limits what you can do. But the paid version is only about $100 a year, and it's like epic. and they have an amazing educational, like tutorial kind of world. That's sort of like their Canva college, that you get access to all the tutorials for free. It's super helpful. So I love these guys just because I think out of all the different platforms, they are one of the easiest to enter into, right? From a do-it-yourself perspective. Wix is another one you might have heard of. They do a lot of commercials. Same thing. They are pretty well known for having a free version and a paid version. The free version is pretty limited, but if you just needed a business card online, something like free Wix or free Canva might totally work. Both of the free versions, if you buy a domain somewhere else, they'll tell you to redirect or point the domain over to your Wix server or over to your Canva server. So you can have like a .com or a .net or .org, and it can take people right to your website, even if you build it on one of these simpler, even free platforms. Right. And these guys have a great e-commerce feature. You have to pay to upgrade to that, but they actually do some big things with e-commerce. And then Weebly and this next one, Squarespace, are similar to Wix. They're just sort of like different versions of the same thing. And all three of these, you basically pay them for everything, right? Like you can buy your domain, your hosting is included, the platform is included. And so you just have to learn how to use that particular platform. Canva's like just way simpler. So you don't have to like really do that much on Canva. You just build the website, attach it to a domain, and you're good. And it's pretty straightforward. They are kind of hosting it themselves. But Wix and Weebly, I would suggest, like, if you're interested in exploring them, you give yourself a little bit of time just to do like free trials and check them out. You might find that you just like one better than another. And I'm not sure that we could argue there's really any legit reason why one is better than the other. It's really subjective. It's just kind of like some people like the CMS on one better than the other. Squarespace is really popular. And Squarespace, I think, one thing about Squarespace is if you build in Squarespace yourself, let's say you DIY a template, later on, there's lots of professional designers that work with Squarespace. And so you can potentially hire a professional designer to come in and take your website to the next level. And then Matthew, I see your question here. If you have a site on Wix, can you pay to organize it to make it really good? So it's funny. Yes, so Wix actually has their own list of people that are Wix experts that can do similar design stuff to what people do on Squarespace. It's not as common. I personally don't work on Wix very much as a designer, but I would definitely check out. I think you can even Google it if you're just like Wix experts. They usually have like a whole section of their website where you can go and look through all these different people that are actually recommended by them and that you could potentially hire just to do some custom design. So instead of having just a template, they could really take it and make it look a lot better. That's the same thing with Squarespace. I just think Squarespace is more popular in general with graphic designers. They just like it better. But there's a lot of cool people working on Wix as well. And then you may have heard of WordPress. WordPress is where if you hired a designer, like Karen hired me, I build almost everything in WordPress. And WordPress is really, there is a free version of it, wordpress.com, where you can just go build your own little website. But WordPress is also like a system that I can install on a server, and then I can custom design till the cows come home. Like it never ends. I could just keep custom designing it and writing code and doing all sorts of cool stuff. I think WordPress, if you use wordpress.com, it's good, but it is even still a little more complicated than some of the other systems. There's just more moving parts. But if you work with a professional, you might find that they prefer to build in this. And WordPress is a good system. It has a great CMS. You really want to make sure if you hire somebody to build in WordPress, they can make you videos of how to edit your own website. I think that's incredibly important when somebody else builds it for you. But WordPress is pretty powerful because if you hire a designer, they build it in WordPress. WordPress actually runs about 33% of the websites in the world. It is literally one of the largest website platforms that exists. So the cool thing is if your website designer builds in WordPress and then they decide to move to Mexico and disappear or retire, you will almost always be able to find somebody else who works in this platform. There's a whole community that I'm a part of around WordPress. And so, yeah, Matthew, just to your question, WordPress is definitely my favorite, but that's because it's where I started. I know it really well. I love being able to really customize the design in a way that I can't really do in a lot of other systems. You know, some people would argue that Squarespace and Wix, you can do just as great design. I think that's, again, just a subjective opinion. But WordPress is definitely my favorite for sure. I will say though, e-commerce, if you're ever thinking about selling products of any kind, I will say, I feel like WordPress is very hard to do on your own for an online store. Whereas like Squarespace and Wix make it really easy. So if you want to sell products of any kind, those two platforms are much, much easier to deal with overall. And with professional web designers, you know, like I said, everything that we just talked about, even if you decided not to build your own website, thinking about all of this and working on it, the designer you hire, the whole thing will be so much better. Because you'll be clearly communicating what you want from them. You'll be like, hey, I already did my brainstorming. You know, here's all the assets that I do have. I need some help with some color decisions, and I need some help with making a better logo. And then here's the content that I want to put on it. And here's some websites that I really like and don't like, right? As soon as you give them that information, they're going to do so much of a better job for you. It's really valuable, I think, to think like a designer, even if you're not going to be a designer, because it just helps them really craft and create something that you really love and that actually works for the people you're trying to attract as well. And every platform, like I said, has their own kind of specialists. So there are people that specialize in Weebly or specialize in Squarespace or Wix, and you could often find them right on the website. Like Squarespace actually has something called Squarespace Circle, and it's all of like the members that build on Squarespace that they think are like top notch. And you have to do a bunch of stuff to get included in that, but then they promote you as people that can work on different websites, right? The other thing too, I think about web design is if you hire somebody else, you still have to be really a part of the decision making. So that's where exploring some of these things ahead of time and getting comfortable with the conversations will also make the process easier, because you'll be able to really participate in the process. Sometimes people come to me and they're like, all right, you're going to build my website. Goodbye. I'll talk to you later. And I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. I'm not you. I don't have your career. I don't have your expertise. I don't know your patience at all. Like, I actually have to be able to talk to you regularly through the whole process so that I'm making really good decisions for you, right? And the other thing with designers that I think, even if you don't know a lot about it, you want to talk to them about and see what kind of conversation they can have with you, is about website usability and user experience. So how many of you, just a show of hands, have ever seen a terrible website? You've been on a website and be like, ew. Yeah, pretty much all of us, right? So it is possible to just build a bad website that's not what people expected and doesn't give them a great experience. And so to me, especially if we hire somebody, it's really important that we can ask them, like, what do they know about it? Especially when I work with people where a lot of their website visitors might be over 50 or over 60 in some ways, we really have to think differently about the site. Like, we can't have 10-point font, right? I mean, I'm only 48 and I can't see that. So if I'm 65, I might not be seeing that anymore. And if I'm looking at my phone, it's even worse. And so like, we really want to think about like, what's usable for people, right? What's going to make it easy? There's sort of a rule in building websites where we often say like, it should be one click to most things. And then at the most, it should be like 3 clicks to get to a point. But if somebody has to click like 5 times, we're going to lose them. They're not going to do it. It's too much work. And so again, we're kind of all spoiled by our smartphones and our social media, where everything's moving fast and it's just tappity, tap, tap, tap. So many people are used to that now. Our websites, we really want to make getting from point A to point B clear. right? We really want to make our calls to action really clear. So if the best thing somebody can do is call you, we want that phone number up front and center, and we want it tappable so their phone can just call you if they're on their smartphone, right? We don't want them to have to look at the number and try to remember it and do all that, because we won't get any phone calls. So there's little things like that. Even if we're just going after something old school, like a phone call, we still want to set up the website to make it as easy as possible for them to do that. Or complete a form or watch a video, all of that stuff, all of the things that we think are goals for our website, actions we want people to take. We just want to make sure it's super easy and they don't have to look for it, search for it. And again, this is just about thinking about the website experience from the perspective of the other people. So a lot of times when I'm building websites, I remind everybody halfway through the project, we're not building the website for us. We're building the website for the clients, the customers, and these people over here. So even though it does matter that you want me to make the blue a little bit bluer, at the same time, I know what looks good on a screen and I know what's readable. And so when I push back and say the blue needs to stay the dark that it is, because otherwise the text is hard to read, right? I'm not saying that just because I want to rain on the parade of you liking the color blue. I'm actually saying it because it's like there's usability involved. There's a reason why we make those choices. So having a designer that can speak to that is really valuable. I feel like it's important sometimes for people in my industry to be better at educating clients about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And being open about that so that we all have an understanding of how we're reaching the goals. And then every website really is responsive and needs to work on every device. So a lot of times, it's even me, I tend to build on a big screen, but the truth is the vast majority of people typically look at things, especially the first time, on their smartphones. And so, especially if you know that people in your community are using their smartphones regularly, it's important to make sure when you build a website that you're going to take that mobile perspective into account. A good example, again, of this is sometimes people lay out a page on a bigger screen, but then when I go look at it on my phone, the main button that people can click on is now all the way at the bottom of the page. So they have to scroll really, really far to get to the call to action. And I'm like, it's too far. We'll lose like 80% of the people for scrolling. So we need to take that button. We need to make sure it sits up here on a phone, not all the way down here, right? Same thing with the phone number. We don't want the phone number kicked all the way to the bottom of a page because there'll be a bunch of people that never make it to the bottom. And so just thinking that mobile devices are really important. Responsive websites are the standard. Everything needs to work on every device. Your designer should be checking that. If you build your own website, usually they'll have little tools to help you see what it looks like. It'll shrink it down and show you the phone version, the iPad version, and the big version. But then go look at your phone and go look at your iPad. Don't look at the previews only. Go and test it. Have some of your friends test it. And there's a great free testing tool if you have a website that Google has created where you can go test the mobile friendliness of your website. So if you have an older website, it's good to run these tests. You might not understand everything that it says in the report, but it'll tell you kind of in a rating system if your website is really up to speed with like modern standards. And a lot of this stuff around usability is just about the customer journey. So when we build websites, we're always thinking about the fact that some people are coming to the website for the first time. They've never seen it before. They have to figure things out. Some people might be coming back because they've already been to an event and they want to go to another one. And so they don't need to figure it out. They need to go right to the events page and figure out when the next event is, right? So we're always thinking about the different types of audiences, but then also the different reasons that they'd be coming to the website. This is where if you look at Karen's website, we have a few different things on her homepage, right? There's some easy things to click on to get to things about advocacy, things about coaching. There's events listed there. Her blog posts are there. So I can actually hit that one page and kind of navigate the whole site from that one page for some of the most common things that people would be looking for, right? And we adapt that and add to it and change it at different times. And then Google has done a ton of free studies. There's this great website called Think with Google. And they're just like doing all sorts of market research about people and just giving away the research for free. One of my favorite things they ever did was Google micro moments. just about, there's 4 main reasons people pick up their cell phone. I want to know, I want to go, I want to do, and I want to buy. Right. And so just being able to think of it from that perspective, again, how do we create information on our website that answers these types of questions or gives people the information they need to take action? So any questions about websites in particular? Any other specific things?
I just want to say one quick thing about Sarah. So, one of the things I would say to everyone, we're nurses and we've, been in nursing school and we've worked in healthcare and we know 5,000 acronyms and 47,000 abbreviations and 80,000 definitions. But when you transfer from healthcare nursing to website design and SEO, it is like a different world and different definitions and everything. And I remember my first meeting with Sarah was, what is an SEO? What is a widget? What is what? And she gave me these videos, and every time I looked at them, I was like totally overwhelmed. And one other thing, I had to work with her for 7 months because you write the text and she is just helping you get through the hurdles. So she was very good with that. And mine happened over 7 months. So I would like for you not to judge yourself if you feel like it's taken too long. And then she was very sensitive to the colors and the fact that I like nature. And she was just great. So being able to have a relationship with your web designer that you trust and love is very important. And I trust and love Sarah. There you go.
No, thanks for that. I will just say that I find in the web design world, there's a huge failure on the part of my industry to educate, speak clearly, and take the time needed to help people make the right decisions. And so I do think it's really important that, like I said, you don't think of it as like handing it off to some person who knows more than you do. Because in my mind, every client that I've had, I definitely don't know more than them about what they do. And I definitely don't know more than them about who they serve and why. And that is actually what matters most. And so I need to extract that so that I can take my technical knowledge and do a great job. Right. So that's why it has to be a partnership. It can't just kind of be this thing that you pass off and then you don't have to deal with it at all. Even with content, I will say you all are coming into the world of artificial intelligence. So writing your website is going to be a lot easier. Just use ChatGPT and Gemini and tell it all the things that you've put into your strategic plan. So say, I've been doing this for a long time, AI. Here's all about my career. Here's what I want to do now. Here's the audiences I want to serve. I need you to write me a homepage that helps people do A, B, and C, right? And if you feed it all this good marketing information, it actually will typically spit back to you a great outline or even sometimes great content that you can use on a website. So I have been writing websites with AI for the last 1.5 years or so. And one thing I've realized is that I won't lose my job because the AI, you can't replace my 20 years of marketing knowledge, right? I can produce content much more quickly than any of my clients could, which is great. But I also really learned that it's about what you give it. It's not magic. It's not just going to do it for you, right? It's really that you have to give it all the information. What it can do is organize that information, make it sound better, and even sometimes add a marketing or brand voice to that. Lisa, so the typical website design consultation cost. So design consultation specifically is going to be different depending on the provider. I actually do 30 minutes for free for any project because I need to decide if the project is correct. Is it going to fit in with what I want to be doing? Is it a correct fit for me? And I have one other person on my team, Dan. And so, I'm always going to do that first 30 minutes to an hour to talk about the project, meet the client, decide if it's a good fit. If I don't think it's a good fit, I'm usually going to refer them to somebody else that I think is a good fit. But if we're talking about the cost of the website itself, most of my websites at this point that are small business oriented, and they're probably around somewhere between 5 and 10 pages, we start at around $3,000 and go up from there for custom design. I think there's, a lot of designers that are higher than that. I have a bunch of design friends that won't design under 5,000. And then there's a lot of like freelancers that might dip down into that like between 2,000 and 3,000 range. I really think unless you're going to pay somebody outside of the country, if you go below that, I would be cautious about what you're paying for.
Okay.
Because you're probably paying somebody who's going to give you basically a template if they're not charging at least $2,000 for the site. Right. And so that's just like more of a United States kind of baseline. I do think there's plenty of great designers, and there's lots of websites out there that connect you to designers that don't live in this country. And so therefore their pricing can be way more reduced, and they're really talented. It's not like those people are hacks. A lot of them have degrees, so they're really talented. So that's another way that you can go. I think there's just a big difference between working with somebody that you can only interface with online versus working with somebody where you might actually be able to meet with them and get to know them a little better. But I've seen success across the board.
And Sarah, do you find with your clients that they can pay you on a monthly basis, or do you require it all up front or half, or how does that work?
Yeah, so Dan and I typically do either half up front and half when the site goes live, or sometimes if it's a longer project, like let's say it's going to take us 3 months, then I'll do half up front, then a third, like then half of the half, and then half of a half at the end. And that's just because I have a contractor and I need to pay him. I don't want him waiting like 3 months to get paid. And so all my contracts are laid out like that. I think, again, every design agency is a little bit different on what they require and how they have their kind of business model set up. So there are some places where you can pay more monthly fees over time. There's some places that'll ask you for the whole thing up front, especially if it's a bigger website or they're going to take a longer time on it. So that, again, I think knowing your budget up front and feeling comfortable just telling people that from the beginning is good. That way you don't have a bunch of meetings with people that aren't going to be fruitful. Because the way they do it is just not going to fit into what you're able to do right now.
Other questions for Sarah? Hey, Luann.
Can you speak, briefly about security? What if you have proprietary content? What if you have images? What if you had, and then, I guess, there's the, payment channels, but, who takes care of that? If you're not an IT person, anyway.
Yeah. So basically, I think anytime that you have hosting and a domain, they're going to ask you if you want to have something called an SSL. Every website should have an SSL. That's what makes it HTTPS instead of just HTTP, right? And it's going to create a whole deeper level of security. And that's pretty much a standard at this point, even though they don't always include it. But a lot of times it's either included or it's an add-on. You want to make sure that you have that, because that's just going to keep your website itself completely safe. Now, when it comes to things like storing patient information, especially, that is where I would say you don't want to do that on your website. You actually want to get a third-party software, or if you're going to store client information, patient information, things that are proprietary, social security numbers, healthcare details, diagnoses, any of that stuff. I personally don't think you should spend the money to try to build a compliant space yourself. It's like, just get something to manage it. There's tons of pieces of software out there. And I'm a big fan of Google Workspace, because Google Workspace will actually allow you to pay to have a HIPAA compliant version of their system. And so that means anything you're storing in your Google Drive, things that are in your Gmail, you can actually make sure that stuff is HIPAA compliant. And so that to me has been a great, here in Asheville, I have a lot of small businesses that are in the health and wellness field, and Google Drive has been super useful to them because it's like a monthly, it's like a monthly fee that's pretty affordable per user. So if you're a small business, it's very affordable to have that. And then I think with payment systems, again, it's about using third-party systems. So I have PayPal and I have Venmo. That's just really common for most of the people I work with. I still accept a lot of checks as well for different projects, but digitally speaking, I basically have it set up for them. And I have a Square as well. So I've kind of set it up so you can pay me whatever makes the most sense. Clients have different opinions and preferences, and their bank accounts are attached to different things. And so I just set up a few different payment channels, but I don't have to worry about security because the security is their job. That's why I'm paying them a fee. So I don't have to worry about the security of PayPal. That's on PayPal or Venmo or Square. Like they are actually fully secure, double encrypted systems. Now, what I do have to be careful of is I don't have some repeated password that I'm using on everything and I'm saving it in my computer for my payment systems. Have a password. Do not save it in your Chrome, right? Not to your bank accounts, not to your payment systems. Have it saved somewhere else, have it written down somewhere. I use a system called LastPass. LastPass is like, it replaces your browser. And then it takes all my usernames and passwords and it puts it in a double encrypted cloud. So that means two things. One, it's really, really hard to hack my computer and steal any client data. And then also, if my computer right now, if I just spilled this can of water on it and all of a sudden my whole computer was dead, every username and password for all of my clients is up in a cloud. I can just get a new computer, log in, and everything is there. Right. But it's like, I have people's PayPal information, their bank account information, their W-9s, their, like I have all this proprietary information that, is really protected for me, just because if I ever got hacked and it got stolen, that would be a really big hit to me. So that's the one thing, is always make sure you have different passwords on those payment systems. Make sure that they're not a password you're using other places. Those things are connected to your bank account. And also be very careful whenever you get phone calls or emails from PayPal or another type of payment processor. Really know their protocols for that. Most of them would never call you on the phone and ask you for information, right? Or most of them would never email you a certain way. I'm very tentative to click links and emails that I get from PayPal because there's so much like spoofing. And so when I get a message from PayPal, I'll log into my account. And if they're trying to notify me of something, the notification's right there, right? So I don't have to, I can just delete the email and not worry about it and see what they're trying to reach out about. So just having some of that basic knowledge, I think, is the most important. Same thing with hosting, like on Squarespace or Wix, they are covering all of that. You're paying them a monthly fee for their servers. Their servers are secured by them in certain ways. WordPress might be the one difference where, like, when I built Karen's website, she went and got hosting. I don't like to be a host for people. I like business owners to be empowered. So she has her own hosting account. She bought her domain. I installed WordPress over there, and her hosting company handles a lot of the security. And she has some options there for increasing the security down the road if she wants to. We usually check in and talk periodically about what needs to be upgraded, because the hosting company will usually send an email and say, hey, there's some updates, or there's some new things you should do. And so we pay attention and monitor that in some ways. But I think, some IT people will get into, have a VPN, have your own server, I have to say, like, I definitely lean on the side of like third parties. It's their job. It's their job to handle all that higher level security technology stuff. Because to me, even if you had your own server and you went through all the money and expense of doing that sort of stuff, then you have to maintain it. And to me, from a small business perspective, that's a really hard thing for small businesses to be capable of. Bigger companies who have IT people, that's a different thing, right? Because then it's one person's job to take care of all that. But in a small business, relying on third parties for that security is really valuable. Just knowing what you're buying and signing on to. So I do want to show you in the slide deck that I'm going to send Karen. I did put in some more, we don't have time tonight to just dive deep into digital marketing, but I did put some slides together just with sort of my main tips of like when you're getting started and how to approach things. Strategic planning, I think, is something we all have to do as leaders in our companies. And when you have taken the time to really think out what you want to do with your marketing, with your website, and you go to hire somebody, whether that's an employee or a volunteer or a vendor who's going to come in and help, or maybe you just have somebody else that you're working with or who's in your family who's willing to help you, just like explain to them that they really have to be able to clearly communicate all about this, be organized, have a structure, have a process. It's just easy to get into these things and then get off track and then feel like you've got a bunch of stuff all over the place and you never kind of wrap it up and get it moving. Choose your tools wisely. So again, we talked about this. You're going to hear about a million different things to do to market your company. just pick one. And if you're ambitious, pick 2 or 3. But in the beginning, you have to get the word out. Trust what you know about what getting the word out might look like. Choose something that you want to try and invest in it, right? Instead of having 17 million things pulling you in all these directions. In the beginning, all you have to do is get your first few clients or your first few patients. Like you don't need to get a million people. So figure out where you want to invest your time, something that's going to be fun for you, something that's also going to get you in front of the audiences. And if there's something you don't like, then don't do it. I give you all permission. If you're like, look, I never want to have an Instagram, then never have an Instagram. That's a legit choice. And don't let people convince you that it's not a legitimate choice. Because again, everybody has their preferences, right? And these are just like, you can see the list of tools here, right? Social media includes lots of things: digital advertising, blogging and video blogging, search engine optimization, video marketing, still doing public relations, email, right? Doing all sorts of different content on all of these different channels that you have. It's sort of endless. So I always tell people, if there's something that you're already interested in that you like, go after that first. Leverage your own strengths. If you're really good at writing, figure out a way to help promote yourself by writing. If you'd rather do some videos on Facebook, then do that, right? Think about how you can contribute to building your business in the beginning with things that you know you have a talent for, that you have some confidence in. You're going to get challenged. There's going to be a bunch of times where you don't feel confident. So you don't got to rush that process, right? Like in the beginning, figure out how you can start yourself off building off of the things that you already know you're good at. And I think that's what leads you into being able to explore new things and figure out, hey, maybe I would like to learn more about how to live stream. Maybe I would like to know more about how to use MailChimp to send out emails regularly, right? Or maybe I'd like to just know more about Gmail so I can organize all my contacts for the business and really know who I'm talking to and when I talked to them last, right? So just having like this kind of balance between doing things that you feel comfortable with and doing things that are new and challenging and doing that at a pace that makes sense. And then just being realistic. Again, a lot of us are transitioning while we launch a business. We've got other things going on at the same time. So, how much time do you have to devote to marketing? Where do you already have traction on some things with the business? Keep following that and get it done and then move to the next thing, right? Don't have to do a lot of different things because again, it'll contribute to overwhelm. There's no magic formula to a lot of this, right? So it's okay to just be you. I would rather you did a little bit every week and were super consistent than tried to promise you were going to do a whole bunch of things every week that's just not realistic in your schedule, right? Because then you're going to procrastinate and not do anything. And so marketing is a long game. It's going to happen in phases. You could even say my goals for the next month are this. See if you can reach them. If you can't, be real with yourself about why. Set some new goals for month 2, right? Instead of criticism and judging yourself. It's like, to me, we will all do that at some point, but it doesn't actually change the situation. So it's better to just be realistic and accept yourself. And as you're in this process, what you're going to find is you're able to start figuring out where you actually need help. So where would you actually need to maybe ask someone else to do the work? Or are there places in the business where you're like, I'm just not getting this. I need to invest some money here, right? So that's where I think as you figure out how to leverage your strengths and you're realistic, you also start to see what needs to be delegated. For me, that was bookkeeping. Like the first year I was in business, I figured out quick, I hate QuickBooks with the deepest part of my soul. I hope I never see it again. And I always have to have enough money to pay somebody else to do it. And you know what? I have never not paid the bookkeeper in like 18 years, right? It's because I never want to have to do that stuff again. But I only learned that by being forced into doing it and realizing that I just am never going to feel good about it and I'm never going to enjoy it, right? But again, at the end of the day with marketing, it's really about seeing people as human beings and seeing ourselves as human beings for who we really are. I think that if you can approach things from that human-centered place, and when you do get stressed out or you feel like you're really challenging yourself to learn something new, just go back to that place where you're like, this is for the people. This is why I love it. This is how we're going to change the world. This is what really matters, right? And center in on that. It's going to help you remove all that stress and overwhelm and get all the clutter out of the way. And you're going to feel more confident about making decisions. So again, when you guys get this slide deck, you have a lot of my contact information, a bunch of my favorite educational resources, ways to plug in if you want to do some free stuff with me, or if you just want to email me questions, you can always reach out. But ultimately, in this process, you just never stop learning, right? You're always going to want to just have an open mind to new things that you can explore. And like I said, we're all capable of much more than we think we are when we start this process. So I have moments in the office where I do these celebrations when I'm alone about basically what a total super intelligent badass I am. And sometimes I'm here by myself when I do it, but I just do it so I get the recognition that I've taught myself all these things, that I've made it work for a long time. And people are like, Karen, I get to hear from them about how they benefit from it. So, you know, it's like really just building up that belief in yourself, not being afraid to make mistakes and figure it out.
Questions for Sarah? All right. Well, how about this, Sarah? Why don't we do this? Can we do takeaways and tell Sarah what you thought were your best takeaways about what she just told you in 2 hours? So, okay, Sonia, what are your takeaways from Sarah?
Well, again, a great and wonderful class. Great session. Again, you know, Sarah and I, we've already kind of talked a lot about everything. But yes, I mean, I agree with everything you have shared. I've looked at all kinds of different things and just get easily overwhelmed with everything. But I think if I just take it one step at a time, I think I can do it that way. And unlike you, I celebrate the little steps. I mean, the little wins, I call them. I'll go and clap, and I clap for people. But it's just, yes, I can see all of this kind of already working together and trying to figure out how I need to do this and who I could get involved to help me do it as well. Because I just have a lot of like-minded people that I work with, and I think they would be willing to help with it too. So thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
Awesome. And Jennifer, what about you?
So I was kind of going down the same path. I loved what Sarah had to talk about. I kept thinking, oh, my husband does this, or my husband was a network security engineer. So, you know, he's got that part, and he's already said, you know, I can get an AI generated or start a website with that, and then we can take it to where you want it. And so I kind of feel like I'm cheating because between my husband and Lisa Seeds, who is a wealth of knowledge and has a whole different set of resources. You know, I feel like I'm really, I guess, blessed and kind of being led into the direction that I really feel like I need to. You know, as I mentioned earlier, the moral and the ethical injury is just, it's taken its toll on me. And I'm excited for where this can go. And my husband made sure he got the .net, .org, and .com for both of the names that we like, so that you know, we can dominate hopefully the city with our passion. So there you go.
Thank you, Jennifer. That's great. And Lisa Seeds, her partner.
So, like Jennifer said, I'm again blessed with the two of them, her husband and herself. But my biggest takeaway from listening to you is what would I want to put in my website, or what would we want to put in our website that's going to make a difference. Yeah, I think your website is spot on, man. Spot on. A lot of fun to look at. And it makes one interested in looking at more. And that's what I want us to be. I don't want us to be so stoic that we are not appealing to a population that is underserved. I want us to be just stoic enough that they know that we're serious about this job, and that we, but we still have a sense of humanity. So yeah, I'm with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to jump in and say, celebrate the things that when it comes to creating a website, but also creating the brand. I always tell the story in my other classes that when I first met Karen and we were talking about the website, I was like, what kind of imagery do you want to use? And she was literally like, no scrubs, no hospitals. And then I was like, well, send me an example of a website that you like. And she sent me a website called Earth Porn. And it was just like amazing photographs of the earth. And I was like, are you kidding me? You want me to build a healthcare website that's based on earth porn? I'm so excited about this, and I think that still comes through to this day, where her website has all this very calming imagery. It's very like inspiring imagery to look at. So I just encourage people to think outside the box too, and have more fun with it.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, Lisa Nowicki, what about you?
Well, my takeaway was initially I just wanted to run and hide in a hole. The idea of social media and interact, it's not my thing. But when Sarah mentioned like how can I help my community, I like that because that really helped me ground down into why I'm doing this. Not, and just to take it and to do it my way. Maybe I don't have to be on Facebook, but maybe I can do other things. or maybe not initially. We'll just see. So thank you, Sarah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just say you don't have to be on social media. I know that is like heresy to some people,
Yeah.
but there are a million other ways to connect with people. Social media is just one way to do it. There's so many other cool things you could do.
Thank you. And Sabrina, what about you?
Well, mine was multi-part. So I took down some notes of some of the technical stuff, like the one click, and the 3 clicks at most to the call to action. Some of those things were important. But when you talked about the people who are really annoying, that are talking about the blue that needs to be more blue, I felt like you were speaking to me because I would totally be one of those people. So I jotted that down as a personal note because I would definitely be one of those. So my note was to not be that person and to remember that you're trying to look from the perspective of the other people that are looking through your website. And then my overarching was that I just definitely need to hire somebody to do the website. I've done websites before, but if I want it to be good and a little bit more complex, I just need to hire somebody. And that is my overarching lesson of the day. Thank you.
Thank you. And Liz.
I'm with Bree on that piece about I'm gonna have to hire someone for that. I don't know. I can't do it all. I really appreciate how you are giving us permission to not do all the social media stuff. I recently got my health and wellness coaching certificate, and that whole world is all about you have to be on social media, and you have to find your niche. You can't proceed without a niche. So it's just nice to be free from that. I don't know. I also just really see that there's a lot I need to do. Or maybe not do, but like just look within and just really get clear. And perhaps I have not done that quite yet.
Thank you, Liz. Matthew, what about you?
Well, for me, this was the shortest class we've ever had. It just flew by because I love playing with my website. I love my website. I love just going in and for me, it's a very creative experience. In fact, maybe I should just quit working and just play with my website. I don't know if I could afford it, I would. So I think it's fun. One of the biggest takeaways I got was like everything, focus. I'm going through so much right now and trying to set up so many systems in this new entrepreneurial practice, and now drawing in what we're doing here in this class. And I think that the fact of I am doing a Facebook ad for some stuff I'm doing in the practice right now. Just focusing on one thing is helpful, and to validate that Wix is an okay company to be with, because you never know. I don't know who all these companies are. And just the help about, or just the conversation about bringing in help and how to do it.
Thank you, Matthew.
Mhm.
And Luann.
Great class, Sarah. I mean, I don't know that I have anything to add from what everyone else has said, but you've given it great structure. And the most important thing for me personally is strategically thinking, planning this ahead of time. And in the meantime, you can keep it very small and you don't have to jump on social media, but you've kind of laid out a structure of approach and transitioning for someone like me who when you walk in the hospital, you don't have to think about any of this. There's not enough of me. I don't have to worry about finding clients. So anyway, yeah, I think that I'm going to enjoy revisiting, the material of this class because it's power packed. Thank you so much.
Great. And
And
Mark.
I wanted
Oh,
to say
okay.
one more thing too for me, because I got sidetracked. It's just so amazing. I think you're amazing, Sarah. My two biggest takeaways were be yourself and have fun. And for me, that's huge. For me, that's huge. I've just got to quit hiding about that and just do it.
Lovely. Luann, did you finish? Did you finish up? Okay, great. And Mark. Hi, Mark.
Hello, hello. Sarah is like stellar. In my book, she is absolutely incredible, and you can't say it enough. Marketing is like telling a story, and each and every one of you have some incredible stories, and that website becomes just a tool that carries that messaging forward for you 24/7, 52. And that is something that you do want to invest in, and in having that association of your story to your website.
Thanks, Mark. So, Sarah, we are all so grateful to have you come and speak to us tonight. And we're going to say goodbye in the way we've just all learned. So here's our hand signal. So have a good night, everybody. Great to be with you. Bye,
Thank you.
Sarah.
Thanks
Bye.
so much, everyone.
Bye. Bye.